Listen, I know, I'm a little bit late to talking about this, but when you live in a house with other people and you record YouTube videos, you kind of need a quiet house, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get one in the last few days. Not because of anything bad, it's just I live with other people. But now I finally have a quiet house, so finally I can get to do this video, which is good because I've been enjoying doing this series thus far. So I'm not going to make this intro too long-winded. Welcome back to the series that I call I Want to Talk About. Exactly as it says, it's a series where I take something that I just really want to talk about and I blabber on camera about it. It could be literally anything. Something in the art world, it could be how my day is going, although I'm not going to do videos on how my day is going. Something in my personal life, just anything I'm passionate about, I just take it and I talk about it on camera. And as you can tell from the title, today I want to talk about the latest Xbox Games Showcase for 2023. This past week was what I like to call not E3 season. Usually the early to mid part of June is when the E3 Expo is held, where a bunch of game developers and publishers show off the new games that they're working on. However, E3 as of late is not really much of a thing, I would say. Back in 2020, it was canceled because of COVID. In 2021, it returned as a virtual event, but over the last 2 years, it's just been completely gone. Mostly because I think a lot of developers and publishers are kind of starting to realize we don't need to pay money for a panel or a floor space or something like that when we have digital showcases now. The advent of these kind of digital broadcasts like the Nintendo Direct and things like that have made it so that companies don't need to necessarily be in person to announce their new games. And the fact that these companies can announce their things with digital showcases has rendered E3 a bit redundant. With that said, it seems like a lot of publishers still enjoy taking that early to mid-June space to announce some new titles and to have some showcases, and Microsoft is obviously no stranger to this. Rain or shine, E3 or no E3, you can be damn near guaranteed that sometime around June, Xbox is going to emerge with some kind of press conference showcase live stream type thing announcing new projects. Now, going into this showcase, I was honestly extremely concerned, especially because last year's Xbox Games Showcase was kinda rough. It didn't really seem to do a whole lot to generate much excitement, in my opinion, and it made me even more skeptical about where Xbox was going. I've talked about this a bit, but I am a video game journalist and I write for a website, and in the description you can find this, but I was writing several articles during the past year or so where I was talking about Xbox and their lack of exclusives, and not only the lack of proper first-party titles, but the fact that they weren't really communicating the progress of these games. We had games like Avowed, Everwild, Perfect Dark, Fable, Senua, Saga, Hellblade 2, State of Decay 3, Contraband, and The Outer Worlds 2. All these big first-party titles that they were announcing and then just going completely quiet on. And it was making me wonder what the hell was going on over at Xbox. Why were they being so quiet about these big games that they were announcing? I've already heard a lot about how their approach seemed to be a little bit hands-off, so I was wondering what the hell was going on. Because yes, Xbox has had some decent enough games in the past year, like Pentiment and the fantastic Hi-Fi Rush, but these are games that are on a much smaller scale for them. Not only that, but Hi-Fi Rush is technically published by Bethesda, who Microsoft owns, but Bethesda still operates on its own as a self-autonomous publisher, so it's not really a Microsoft game in a kinda sorta way. But either way, I was extremely worried about what was to happen with Xbox as far as its future exclusives. Lest we forget that Xbox is also trying to acquire Activision, but that is going through a lot of big, deep legal processes and things like that, and while that might be impeding a little bit of progress for the company, it did make me wonder, are they paying enough attention to the many, many studios that they already own, and are those studios actually even able to work on these games? Are the development conditions okay? Are we gonna see these games anytime soon? So a lot was riding on this show. Microsoft had a lot to prove, especially given the slow year that they've had and the lack of announcements regarding their major titles, and they had to prove that with or without Activision, whether this deal goes through or not, that they could sustain themselves and release some solid first-party titles. And did they succeed? Well, to my surprise, honestly, yeah. I think they actually had a pretty good show, and I was genuinely surprised by how solid it was. Now, of course, it wasn't perfect, and I do have some issues with it, but ultimately, this is the first time in what feels like a really long while that I have felt a little bit more comfortable about the future of Xbox. Because despite some qualms, Xbox was able to show what I think needed to be shown. Of course, I'm going to go through, I have a list here of everything that they announced, and I'm going to go through and give my thoughts on everything, and then give a general sum up in the end. So, starting things out, Xbox really did what they needed to do by starting the show with Fable. Finally, after 3 years, we finally got to see the game in some form. It was previously announced at the first big Xbox Game Showcase in 2020, but it was completely quiet, and I was a little worried because I thought I had been hearing some rumors of development issues at Playground Games, the developers who were working on the game. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but it is nice to see this game finally make a return. On a personal level, I only ever played the remaster of the first Fable and couldn't really get into it, and I'm still not 100% sure if this new Fable game is like Fable 4 or if it's a reboot. I think it's a reboot, and I'm also not 100% sure what to think of the game because there wasn't really anything in the way of gameplay. I know that Microsoft tried to say before the showcase, we're not going to show any CGI of any of our first-party games. We're going to show nothing but in-engine footage. The problem with that quote is that a lot of the times when they showed in-engine footage, it just looked like they were showing off some cutscenes. And to be fair, if this is what the game will look like graphically, it looks incredible, which doesn't surprise me because Playground Games previously made the Forza Horizon series, and those games are graphical powerhouses. So ultimately, I definitely need to see more of the game itself, but I am happy it stopped by, and I'm happy that we got to see something of it, something tangible after that initial teaser announcement. There's still no release date, but it is going to obviously be a day one game on Xbox Game Pass because Xbox owns the company that is making it and they own the IP. So that's going to make it pretty compelling for me personally, and probably for a lot of people, because Xbox Game Pass is a pretty damn great service. After that, Xbox showed us South of Midnight, the new game from Compulsion Games, who previously made We Happy Few. A game that I honestly wasn't really that crazy about when I tried it out myself, even though I was pretty excited for it beforehand. And ultimately, again, I don't really know what to make of this game because the art style is pretty damn beautiful, but once again, despite the claims of being in-engine footage, there was no proper gameplay. Again, it just looked like I was watching a cutscene. A really pretty cutscene, but a cutscene nonetheless. I'm interested to see more of it eventually, but yeah, there's gonna need to be a lot more shown of it to get me into it, because it's a totally new IP, I don't know what it's gonna be like, and I kinda wanna see if it's anything that I'm gonna be interested in gameplay-wise. Again, no release date, it's probably not coming for a little while, but as always, it's going to be day one on Game Pass because Compulsion Games is also owned by Microsoft, so it's going to be there on day one, which is great. Moving to a third-party announcement, we then got into Star Wars Outlaws, the new game from Ubisoft and Massive Entertainment, the team behind The Division and the upcoming Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. It is an open-world Star Wars game set between episodes 5 and 6. Supposedly, it's the first ever open-world Star Wars game because Jedi Survivor wasn't open enough. I, for all intents and purposes, am not really a Star Wars fan. I don't follow the films. I don't really know the lore or the story like that. But I do enjoy a lot of Star Wars video games. I did enjoy Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor. I thought Star Wars Squadrons was pretty good. And I did enjoy Star Wars Republic Commando as well, on top of obviously the LEGO Star Wars games that can be pretty fun. So even though I'm not fond of the series, I always say that I don't have to be that interested in an IP to be excited about a game. My love of gaming can supersede my love of an IP, so with Star Wars, even though I'm not really a fan of the series, I tend to get excited for Star Wars games. And this is an example because what they showed at the Xbox showcase was a CGI trailer that admittedly was pretty impressive despite the fact that I don't really care for CGI trailers for games. But later at the Ubisoft Forward event, they showed gameplay for it, and it honestly looks extremely fun. Between this and Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, I'm pretty excited for what Massive Entertainment is doing, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing this. It's coming out sometime next year, and it's most definitely on my radar. Moving on from there, we got to look at 33 Immortals from Thunder Lotus, the team behind Jotun and Spiritfarer. I have not played either of those games, but this does look pretty awesome. There's a sweet art style that kind of reminds me of Hades a little bit. The top-down combat looks smooth, and it obviously features 33-player co-op as the title suggests, which sounds pretty damn wild to me. I do kind of hope the game is still fun to play if you play it single player, but obviously 33-player co-op, I mean, that's pretty damn awesome. Yeah, it looks like a pretty unique game that I'd definitely like to see more of. It's coming out sometime next year, and it's going to be a Day 1 Game Pass title, which is awesome. After that one I know a lot of people were excited about, we had Payday 3. Finally some gameplay of this game. It was announced back in like 2016, but the developers Overkill Software, Starbreeze Studio, were having some financial problems, so it took a while for us to get to this point where we could have some gameplay of Payday 3. I only ever played a little bit of Payday 2 at a friend's house, but it was pretty fun and chaotic, and this one also looks fun and chaotic. Payday always seems to be pretty chaotic fun, and this looks like another example of that. I'm not usually too big on a lot of multiplayer-focused games and shooters. I personally prefer it when games have campaigns, especially shooters, but this looks like it'll be a great time. It's coming out September 21st, nice that it finally has a date, and it is a Day 1 Game Pass title, which is pretty awesome. Might actually motivate me to give it a try. And then we got a pretty big game on the third-party front, Persona 3 Reload. This was heavily rumored before the showcase, but yes, Persona 3 is getting a full remake. Me personally, I have never played a mainline Persona game. Only thing that I've ever played of the series is the tiniest bit of Persona 5 Strikers, and I'm not usually too into these kind of games, so this was an announcement I don't think was ever really made for me. But with that said, the game does look really cool. Like, if I'm just looking at it objectively without any thoughts of genre in mind, it does look like it's pretty fun. I've heard some debate about whether this game truly needed a remake, and I can't possibly comment, but as someone that's not really into turn-based games with a few rare exceptions, it looks great if you're into that. I have heard some people talk about this, and it does suck that this remake doesn't have the Persona 3 Fez content or the female protagonist from Persona 3 Portable. Hopefully they add some of these things later on, but ultimately I think this is still a cool announcement. It's coming next year, and it is a Day 1 title on Game Pass, so that's going to make it an even more compelling title to look forward to. Back onto the first-party front, though, we finally got another look at Avowed, another game that previously was announced alongside Fable back in 2020 that we finally got to get a look at with a little bit of gameplay, not a ton, but at least a little. The game is being handled by Obsidian Entertainment, who previously made games like Fallout New Vegas and The Outer Worlds and Pentiment. Personally, I was not that into The Outer Worlds. I tried it multiple times but couldn't get into it. Same thing with Pentiment. But this looks like it'll be a pretty fun quality title with some solid gameplay. Again, I'm not sure if it will grab me in a way that The Outer Worlds didn't, but in general the gameplay that I saw here looked good, and I think it'll be another pretty strong Obsidian RPG. The announcement that it's coming out in 2024 is also good news. Good to know that Xbox fans will have another big exclusive to look forward to next year, and obviously, because it's an Xbox-owned title, Day 1 on Game Pass, awesome. From there, we got another Sea of Thieves announcement. This one is the Legend of Monkey Island expansion. Sea of Thieves is a game I personally have not really been able to get into, but I think this is great. It's nice to see some Monkey Island stuff these days, given that that series lay dormant for so long. And I think this is an announcement, or an expansion rather, that I think needed to happen at some point. The Pirates of the Caribbean expansion made sense to come first, because obviously that's the big pirate franchise, but it's cool that Monkey Island's getting some love too. It's not going to make me go re-download the game because it's like 47 gigs, but it's a cool collab. It's coming out July 20th, and obviously it's a free expansion and the game's already on Game Pass, so have at it if you're interested. And then next up we got to look at Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. I did not expect we were going to be getting another iteration of this series. Having played the previous Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 game, I think it's a title I respect a lot for its amount of detail, but it's not really something I care to play all that much. I feel like these kind of games are the thing that really play to a certain niche only. Everybody else need not apply. So again, it's not my thing, but it's cool if you like it, and it's cool how much detail goes into a game like this. It sounds like they're adding a new mission-based career mode kind of thing. It's almost like they wanted to appeal directly to me as someone who likes those kind of things. Will it work? I don't know. It's coming out 2024, and obviously it's Day 1 on Game Pass, so if they wanted me to try it, I most likely will. And Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is getting some kind of Dune expansion that allows you to pilot the Ornithopter, the plane thing that's from Dune. It's coming out November 3rd as a tie-in to Dune Part 2, the upcoming movie, which is a film I'm pretty excited about because I love the first one, so if nothing else, I think that's a cool collaboration. Moving along with one more first-party title, we have Senua Saga Hellblade 2 finally making another reappearance. The last time we saw this was at the Game Awards in 2021, so it was nice that we finally got to see it again. It feels like this whole video I've been saying that previous games have not necessarily been for me. And yeah, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice was not a game I was that into, personally. But again, if an announcement is of a game that is not necessarily for me, I like to think about how it's going to be for other people, and knowing that this first Hellblade game was pretty popular and had a big fan base of people that really enjoyed it, I'm happy for those guys that are finally getting a new one. Once more though, Xbox says that what we saw of Hellblade 2 was in-engine footage, but didn't actually show gameplay because everything they showed looked like a cutscene. I know that a game like this is more about story than gameplay, but as someone that wasn't really into the gameplay of the first game, I would have liked to see more of the actual game itself to see if it was doing anything that the first one didn't do for me. Because Hellblade 1 was a game I feel like I appreciated more watching it than I did playing it. But still, it's good to see this game come back, and it is coming out in 2024 as a Day 1 Game Pass title because it is an Xbox-owned game. So that's good news. Hopefully we'll get to see more of it sometime soon. Back on the third-party front a bit, we got a look at Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, the latest entry in the franchise formerly known as Yakuza. I have never played a game in that series, and I don't know if I necessarily plan to, but the trailer was pretty entertaining for this. It was all CGI, no gameplay, but the trailer did show the newest series protagonist, Ichiban, waking up on a beach naked. Not necessarily realizing that he's naked, just kind of being like, where the hell am I? And then suddenly, oh crap, I'm nude, everyone can see everything flying out. So that was funny. No gameplay, but the trailer gave me some chuckles, so that was nice. And again, I know this franchise has a big fan base, a lot of people will really enjoy it, so it's good that a new entry is coming along. And it's coming out early 2024, so good news for all the Like a Dragon fans. After that, we got to hear from Bethesda, who announced the Fallout 76 Atlantic City expansion. I don't play Fallout 76. The only thing for me is when I heard Atlantic City, I was like, oh hey, New Jersey. I'm Philly, that's Jersey. I've been to Atlantic City plenty of times. I know that place. Hey, shout out Atlantic City. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of impressed that Fallout 76 has managed to live as long as it has, despite the fact that it launched in such a sorry state. But again, this announcement wasn't really for me. I don't play Fallout, and I don't really plan to, so yay for those of you that do. I'm glad to see the game still has a player base. No release date for this one, but obviously it's going to be playable with Game Pass because Fallout 76 is on Game Pass, so there you go. Have fun in Atlantic City. Moving on from there, though, we got to look at Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess, a new action game from Capcom, specifically Capcom Dev 1, the team responsible for the Resident Evil and Devil May Cry series. Two franchises I very much enjoy. It looks like a slick-ass action game with a creepy aesthetic. For some reason, it reminded me of Ghostwire Tokyo when I first saw it, probably because both games are so ingrained in Japanese folklore. It was a little hard to tell because there wasn't a ton of gameplay, but it seems like it has some strategy elements to it as well. But it definitely looks cool. Capcom in general has been on a crazy hot streak lately, and Dev Team 1 has been putting out some bangers in the Resident Evil and Devil May Cry franchises, so I'm interested to see more of this. No release date, but it's day one on Game Pass, so even better news for me. Moving on from there, blah blah Forza, the new one's coming out October 10th, day one Game Pass, it's cars, blah blah blah, Forza, yay. Yeah, I'm sorry, I blew past this part because Forza is a game that once again appeals to a specific niche. Everyone else need not apply. If you're not into it now, it's probably not going to sell you anytime soon. I'm not big on realistic car games like this, so this was the point where I was kind of zoning out. I mean, it looks good, and obviously graphically it's very impressive, but again, if you're not really into Forza already, nothing they show of a new one is going to get you into it. So yeah, cool for people who are looking forward to it. Forza Motorsport later this year, day one Game Pass. Yay. Another moment that I reacted to that with was the Elder Scrolls Online Necrom's Shadow over Morrowind chapter. Once again, it feels like every year Bethesda just wants to show Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online. Once again, I was kind of zoning out because Elder Scrolls Online is not a game that I necessarily play or have any plans to play. Once again, if you weren't sold already, you weren't going to be sold here. If you are into that, hopefully that's exciting to you. Hopefully the Morrowind chapter is exciting. It's coming June 20th. By the time this video is uploaded, it'll probably be out, so if you're playing it, I hope you're enjoying it. From there, we got to look at Overwatch 2 again, just some new heroes and modes coming to the game and some story missions that I believe are essentially the remnants of the larger PvE integration that was hyped before the release of the game, but was recently scrapped. That was a pretty big deal. A lot of people were very upset about it, understandably so. For me, I'm not too into Overwatch. I played a little of Overwatch 2 since it was free, but didn't really get into it. And it seems Blizzard's already kind of soiled a lot of the goodwill surrounding it, especially by announcing that the story missions are going to be priced and exclusively available in a bundle, I think I read. So I'm not sure how this is gonna go, though I presume it will not go very well. If you are interested, it's coming out August 10th, and the hero pack will be available to those who are subscribed to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, so there you go. Alright, after that we got to look at Persona 5 Tactica. The title says it all, but this is a tactics-based spin-off of Persona 5. Once again, I don't play Persona, and I play tactic games even less than I play Persona, so for me this was a little bit of a nothing burger. Obviously though, if you are a fan of either Persona or tactics games, this is a great announcement, and it looks like it'll be good for what it is. I think the chibi aesthetic was also pretty cute as well, but again, it's pretty much a cool if you're into that kind of thing title. Nothing that's really exciting to me, but maybe you're a little more excited. To that I say, I hope you have fun with it. It's coming out November 17th, and again, it's going to be a Day 1 Game Pass title, so awesome. Then we got a little tiny look at Starfield, just a short trailer for it. I suppose they wanted to include it in the main show in some way, but they didn't want to spoil the Starfield Direct that was coming after the main show. I will try to save my thoughts on Starfield until the end of this video, but this was ultimately a good trailer, what they happened to show during the actual main showcase. It's hard to say much more because I want to wait until like that part of the video to talk about it, though trust that I don't have that many thoughts on Starfield, to be completely honest, but yeah, the trailer itself was enjoyable. Moving away from that into a few smaller titles, the next game we had was Jusant, which is the newest project from Don't Nod, which really surprised me when I saw that. When it comes to Don't Nod, even though they have made some games like Remember Me and Vampire, my mind immediately clings to titles like Life is Strange and Tell Me Why, those like narrative, walkie-talkie, very minimal gameplay types of things. So seeing something like this, an action puzzle platforming climbing mixture, really threw me for a loop, but it looked pretty interesting. I think the aesthetic was pretty adorable. It looks like it could be fun so long as the gameplay ends up being varied enough. I will almost definitely have to see more of it, but color me intrigued for now. And even if it's not the flashiest, it's coming out this fall and it's going to be a Day 1 Game Pass title, so what reason do I have to say no when it comes out, right? So that was good fun, and then we got to take a look at Still Wakes the Deep, the newest title from the Chinese Room, the team behind Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. It's a first-person game moving back to the horror genre that the Chinese Room previously explored with Amnesia: Machine for Pigs. Honestly looks pretty cool to me. The trailer didn't reveal a whole lot, but it showed some gameplay that looks like it could be pretty compelling. I am not much of a horror person, but I do enjoy horror video games, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of this one. It's coming early 2024, and you can say it with me, it's a Day 1 Game Pass title, so definitely pretty excited to see where that goes. Just like I'm excited to see more of Dungeons of Hinterberg, which is an action-adventure game that's serving as the debut title from new developer Microbird Games. This was easily a high point in the showcase for me. I think the action and exploration elements look so cool, and the visuals are absolutely gorgeous. It's got a cel-shaded design that I think is absolutely awesome and super colorful, and it looks like it could be a really fun game alongside that beautiful art style. I'm definitely setting my sights on this one and keeping a close eye on it. I hope it ends up being as good as it looks. It's coming early 2024, and obviously, like many of the games here, it's going to be Day 1 on Game Pass, which is great news. Even more excited to play it knowing that it's coming Day 1 to Game Pass. From there, we got to take a look at Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, the newest expansion to the base game Cyberpunk 2077. First and foremost, I love that Xbox took another opportunity to milk Keanu Reeves by bringing him back for this, just like they did in 2019 with the "You're breathtaking" thing. Although, compared to the things he was saying, I laughed even harder when he was like, "Take a look," and then just really quickly scampered off screen before the transition into the gameplay. I just thought that was really funny. I don't know why. As for the game itself, I did play through Cyberpunk 2077 and beat it, and I didn't love the game, but I did enjoy it. My only problem really was that, given how much it was hyped, I don't think it was as revolutionary as they were making it out to be, and that was pretty disappointing to me. But I did enjoy the game. To be fair, I normally am not that big on expansions, so under normal circumstances, this wouldn't be too appealing to me. However, admittedly, I have been wanting to dip my toes back into the world of Cyberpunk and maybe play the game again after watching Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which is maybe my favorite thing that I've ever watched. Honestly, it did things to me. It was a beautiful show. So I've been kind of wanting to get back into Cyberpunk, and I think this expansion sounds like a pretty interesting place to do it, because it sounds like there's a lot of cool new stuff coming. They are apparently overhauling the leveling, there's going to be vehicular combat, and it looked like in the trailer you will be able to experience cyberpsychosis, which was kind of crazy to me, because after watching Edge Runners, my first thought was, why the hell was cyberpsychosis not something you could really experience in 2077? So the fact that supposedly they're adding cyberware that can make you experience cyberpsychosis, I thought that sounded pretty cool. Even though I don't play many expansions, this sounds like one I will have to try out so long as the price doesn't end up being too steep for me. Student loans and all. It's coming out September 26th, and there are a lot of games coming out this fall that I definitely want to play, so I'm hoping this expansion doesn't get lost in the cracks for me. Again, after watching Edge Runners, I definitely have to play Cyberpunk again. But yeah, that was exciting, and another announcement that was pretty exciting if you're into this genre was City Skylines 2. While I'm personally not into many city building games, I know that the first game was massively popular, and this is pretty cool if you're into something like that. There's not a whole lot I could personally say about it, other than that given how good the first one was, I hope this one turns out just as good. It's coming out October 24th, so add another game onto the pile of titles that are coming out this fall that are hopefully going to be pretty great. And throw in the fact that it's going to be a Day 1 Game Pass title. There you go. Even more reason to want to play it. From there, we got to look at Metaphor ReFantazio, the new project from Atlus's Studio Zero. Man, Xbox really loves showing stuff at their showcases that either is Persona or really looks like Persona, don't they? Once again, I personally don't really get into a lot of turn-based titles. The only ones that I've recently been able to play are some of the recent Pokemon games and the older Paper Mario games. That said though, this looks good if you're into it. I'm sure Persona fans will probably enjoy it quite a bit. For me, I was like, cool. Not really my kind of thing, but it's alright if that's yours. And it's coming out in 2024, so there's still going to be a bit of a wait for it, but don't worry, there's plenty of Persona content coming that's going to keep you satiated. After that, we got to look at Towerborn, the newest title from Stoic, the developers of the Banner Saga series. I have no experience with that franchise, so I can't tell you how this compares, but it's a side-scrolling co-op action RPG that looks pretty nice. There's a great art style, the combat looks pretty decent. The only thing I'm really concerned about is whether the game is going to be fun outside of co-op, because I have read that the game will allow you to fly solo, and I just kind of hope it's as fun flying solo as it is to play with other people. I think that's just me as someone who enjoys single-player games more than multiplayer, but either way, yeah, it looks like it's pretty fun. Nothing mind-blowing, but solid enough. Coming out sometime 2024, Day 1 on Game Pass, that's going to be pretty cool, and that's going to give me a little more reason to try it out when it eventually does arrive. Then we got to see Clockwork Revolution, the latest title from the Xbox-owned inXile Entertainment, who previously made the recent Wasteland games. I never played those, but just at least from what I understand of the series, this looks massively different. Instead of being like a top-down turn-based game, it's more like a first-person RPG. I have heard a lot of BioShock Infinite comparisons with this one. Personally, I haven't really played any of the BioShock games, so I can't really make any comparisons. But the game looks pretty dope, even though I'm very picky when it comes to first-person RPGs such as this. I think the steampunk aesthetic looks pretty sweet, and the time-bending element looks like it could be pretty promising for the gameplay. I say that because, again, what they showed, while they say it was in-engine footage, it didn't look like a ton of it was actual gameplay. So I think I'd like an uninterrupted look at gameplay before I give my final opinion, but what was in this trailer does look cool. Even as someone that doesn't really play a lot of games like this, I am keeping my eye on it. It's coming, as the trailer joked, in due time. I will say I think that was pretty funny, given that the game is all about clocks and time, and they said it's coming in due time. And again, it's a Day 1 Game Pass title, so even if I'm not 100% sure what to make of it yet, I'll have no real reason to say no when it does come to Game Pass. After that, Phil Spencer came out on stage and announced that a 1TB black Xbox Series S is coming out on September 1st for $349. Yeah, that's a thing. It's fine if you're more into the all-digital console that is a little less powerful, and obviously a terabyte of space is nice. For me, I'm totally fine sticking with my Series X. And then the rest of the showcase was dedicated to the second part, which was the Starfield Direct. I'm gonna fully admit, I skipped out on this part when it was originally broadcast. And then when I did end up rewatching the showcase, I kinda just skimmed. I had said it earlier, but I don't have a ton of thoughts on Starfield because I don't really have any past history with Bethesda Game Studios titles. As I said, I'm kind of picky when it comes to open world games and RPGs, and I've never really played the Elder Scrolls or Fallout. The only time I ever played an Elder Scrolls game was Skyrim VR for like a few minutes, but otherwise haven't really played either series and don't really have much motivation to, even though I have several of the games at my fingertips on Game Pass. So know that these opinions I'm about to give are from someone who doesn't really have a stake in whether it turns out good or not, because I don't have much of a pre-established connection to the games. This has already been polarizing, and I know that Starfield will probably continue to be polarizing, but I'm going to be on the side of optimism and say I think it looks pretty good. I think the fact that it is 30 frames per second does kind of suck. I can be a bit of a frame rate snob sometimes, and I prefer that every game be 60 frames per second, especially a game like this where you can play it in first person and you do shoot. But ultimately, I don't want to act like I know better than the game developers, because I don't. If that's what they need to do to achieve their vision, fine. I mean, being completely fair, my current game of the year is a game that plays at 30 frames per second, so I'm kind of a hypocrite. But overall, I think the gameplay looks good. As I said, I'm kind of picky because these games tend to overwhelm me a little bit, but just from what I saw of the game, it looks like it could be pretty fun. Will it be buggy? Probably. I've heard that's a common thing with Bethesda Game Studios games. Is it fair to be a bit skeptical after Fallout 76? Sure. Am I willing to be a bit optimistic that it'll come out and be good? Yeah. I mean, Bethesda's past reputation tells me they could easily bounce back from Fallout 76, and to me, again, what they showed looks solid. When I saw it last year, I thought it just looked like Fallout in space, and it honestly could just end up being that, but equally, it could end up being great. Again, though, I don't really have a stake in whether the game turns out to be good or not, because I don't play these kinds of games or Bethesda Game Studios' other games, so I'm thinking less about me in this case and thinking more about other players. Because again, when it comes to a game like Zelda that I mentioned earlier, that was my most anticipated game of this year. If it miraculously came out and ended up bad, I might have been a little inconsolable. If a game like Star Wars Jedi Survivor came out, that's a game I was very much anticipating. If it came out and it wasn't good, again, I'd be pretty inconsolable. If a game like Starfield comes out and it's not super good, I can still put my shirt and pants on the same way tomorrow morning and not be changed by it. So I'm thinking less about myself and more about what I'm hearing from others, and generally it seems like a lot of people are excited about it, and that makes me happy because I think the gaming industry runs a lot on negativity and skepticism, and I understand why. But it's nice when people are excited about a game, just genuinely happy and looking forward to a game. And for their sake, I hope this ends up coming out and it's awesome. It's coming September 6th, and it is going to be day one on Game Pass because it's Bethesda and Microsoft owns Bethesda. Even though I just mentioned that I'm not too into these games, I will probably at least try it out because I have Game Pass and will have Game Pass when it comes out, so I'll at least give it a shot and see how it goes. Ultimately, again, as someone who, like I said, doesn't really have a stake in it, I hope that it ends up being good for the sake of the fans. So overall, the Xbox Games Showcase turned out pretty good. I think that Xbox definitely showed what needed to be showed, a lot of first-party titles, which is really good. And with the fact that we finally got to see a few games we haven't seen in a long time, like Avowed and Fable and Hellblade 2, I finally feel like I can exhale a little when it comes to the future of Xbox, because they have some pretty promising stuff in the pipeline. Not only that, but pretty much everything they showed looked at least decent. There wasn't anything here that I was like, oh god, that looks like it's gonna be bad. And it helps that Xbox has the ultimate Trojan horse, which is Xbox Game Pass. I've been bringing it up a lot during this video, but Game Pass is really such a boon for Xbox, because you have a service where you can pay $15 a month to have hundreds of games, including brand new games that come to the service on day one, including major titles. Some of the big games that I mentioned in this video, like Starfield and Payday 3 and Avowed and Fable and all those games, are going to be on Game Pass as soon as they launch. Instead of having to pay $70 for these games, you can pay $15 a month for them, and I think that that's a great thing that really helps Xbox showcases a lot because, quite frankly, a lot of these games that I would have been on the fence about, I lean more toward wanting to play because they're going to be on Game Pass. So I feel like I have to tip my cap to Xbox on that, and it feels like finally they're going to have some pretty exciting new games to put on the service to make it even more compelling. Again, it wasn't perfect. I think a few more of the games could have gotten shown, and the showcases of them could have been a little longer. I would have liked to see a little more actual tangible gameplay on some of the first-party titles, and I would have liked to see a little bit more of what Bethesda is cooking up. I know a lot of the show was dedicated to Starfield, but personally, as someone who's more into companies like id Software and Machine Games, I would have been interested to see what these guys are doing. We haven't heard from id since Doom Eternal, so I am just curious what's going on there. And I know that Machine Games is supposedly working on Wolfenstein 3, and I think they're also working on an Indiana Jones game, and I would have liked to get some updates on what's going on there. But ultimately, I think this was a good show for Xbox. They showed what needed to be showed, and as I said, finally, I can feel a little more comfortable about the future of Xbox, which I think is the most important part. Other than the fact that 90% of this lineup is going to come day one to Game Pass, so yeah, that's pretty cool too. If I had to give the show a grade, I would probably give it a B, just a straight B, not a plus or minus. I might press a little bit on a plus, but the fact that we could have gotten some more gameplay means I'm going to probably keep it at just a B. But ultimately, good show. I'm pretty satisfied with it, and I had a good time while watching it, and there's some good stuff to look forward to. So, kudos to Xbox. But that's just my opinion on the showcase. What did you guys think about it? Did you enjoy it as much as I did, if not more? Did you hate it way more than I did? Are you just completely indifferent toward it? How do you feel about Xbox after watching this show? Are you excited about it? If you have Game Pass, are you excited about the future of Game Pass? And if you don't, are you convinced now to subscribe or get into Xbox? Whatever your thoughts and opinions are, leave them down in the comments below. Let's keep this civil and have some fun as we like to do. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe and support some of my other ventures that I have linked in the description, thank you. If not, it's no big deal. I totally understand. And as for what's next in this series, I'm thinking of doing something music related. Again, I know a lot of you guys are here for the music related videos because that's a lot of what I make. And I think I have something music related for this series that I might want to do next. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to say definitively what it is yet, but I think I have a good idea. So stay tuned for that, but until next time, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.